Hey, we're Matt and Cheryl from We're in the Rockies, and today we are at Glacier National Park. The whole purpose of our channel is to help you travel to the west.
So in this video, we're going to show you things to do in Glacier National Park. We're going to go on hikes, boat rides, scary drives, and see some really cool old lodges. Glacier National Park is located in northern Montana and is the 12th largest U.S. national park. Its main features are majestic mountains with stunning valleys carved by glaciers. The park actually extends into Canada. The Canadian side is called Waterton Lakes National Park. Together, they are known as Waterton Glacier International Peace Park.
Up first is the beautiful Avalanche Lake. This is such an amazing stop. What it is it's in West Glacier. You park by the Trail of the Cedars, which is a smaller trail boardwalk, and then you do an extra 2 miles up to this Avalanche Lake. Along the way, you're going to see some amazing cottonwood trees, so it's nice and shaded. You're going to see an amazing gorge, and then you're going to continue up, and when you get here, you're going to have the best surprise of all. You're going to be here at Avalanche Lake with this crystal clear water and 4 waterfalls like just across the way. They're far away, but they're towering and amazing, and the whole way through, pretty towering walls. So a little bit about this hike. So it starts off at the Trail of the Cedars, which is a boardwalk, all accessible trail. It's really easy. It's about a mile long and it's a loop. And then from there, you can break off and head up to Avalanche Lake, and that's 2 miles up, 2 miles down. We'd say it's a moderate hike. The trail's packed dirt, a few rocks, but not anything I'm super worried about twisting an ankle on, but be careful. And it's totally shaded, which makes it really nice. The only wildlife we've seen is a chipmunk. They're kind of friendly here at the end of the trail, but you can also hear some birds. What bird did you hear, Matt?
Oh, I can't remember. It was a thrush. I don't know, thrush or something.
Yeah, had a really kind of shrieky call. And this hike, I would say it would take you about 3 hours. Matt has been kicking my butt and making me like run up the hill, but I would say for the average Joe, it's a 3 mile or a 3 hour hike. Some things
5 miles round trip.
And 5 miles round trip. So some things I've really liked about this hike is on the Trail of the Cedars. I remember taking my children here 10 years ago when they were small, and I loved it because, like I said, all accessibility, so it was really easy for children to do. And I felt like I was on the moon of Ender. Like, there are just so many trees and ferns. It's just very, very natural and beautiful. There's this amazing gorge at the Trail of the Cedars, like right when you go up to Avalanche Lake. It's just so pretty. And on the plaque next to it, it says red, blue, green, and white. And as I looked around and saw it, there were all those colors. There's red in the ground, and there's blue in the water, and green moss, and of course white rocks also. So you're seeing a lot of colors here at Glacier, and it's just really is quite breathtaking. Now, as I was hiking this, I'm always trying to think about what I would tell someone about it. And my thoughts as I was hiking up to Avalanche Lake was that the best part was the Trail of the Cedars. And then we came out of the woods and saw this. And I have to say, this might be one of the most spectacular hikes I've ever been on.
Next thing to do is to visit Apgar Village. Apgar Village is on the west side of Glacier. It is at the foot of Lake McDonald. You can see Lake McDonald behind me here. It's just kind of a cute little village. It's not very big at all. When we talk about village, we're saying that there are some hotels and places that you can stay on the lake here. There's a campground. There is a visitor center that you can go to learn about the park or ask rangers questions. And then you can see some buildings behind me here. There's just some gift shops. There's a restaurant here, Eddie's Cafe. We've done a whole nother video on where to eat at Glacier National Park, so check that out. You can also rent kayaks down the road here, and that's kind of cool because when you rent them, you can actually push them on like a stroller down to the lake, so that's kind of cool. And then at the lake, you can actually rent a motorized boat and take it out on the lake. So, I mean, there's a lot to do. You can just go stroll along the lake shore if you want, a little beach. It's rocky, not sandy, but you can go check out the lake, and just a nice little spot. Okay, the next thing to do is to just stop at the rivers. There are so many rivers flowing through Glacier National Park, coming down from the mountains, and beautiful cascades and waterfalls. And the water is just so turquoise blue and so clear. It's really spectacular, and there are plenty of little overlooks so you can just pull over and stop and come down and just get close to the water. It's wonderful.
Next up is to go out on Lake McDonald. We're staying at the Lake McDonald Lodge tonight, but there are a lot of ways you can access this beautiful Lake McDonald. It's a really big, beautiful lake. It's very clear, it's very calm, and it's a great way to get away from crowds. I haven't noticed that Glacier is incredibly crowded, but I believe that when people go to national parks, they're trying to get some solace and connect with nature, and I think this is a great way to do it. The Glacier Boat Company, they do boat rides, but they also rent boats at almost all the lakes around here. And so we rented a motorboat. This is just an old school aluminum motorboat with a little Honda motor. It gives me memories of my childhood. This is the type of boat I actually learned to water ski behind as a kid. But then 10 years ago, we came out here with our own little brood of, we had 3 little boys at the time, and I was pregnant with our daughter, and we rented a little boat just like this and drove our kids around the lake, and it was one of the most memorable things we did on that trip. And if you don't want to do a motorboat, I want to say though, these are super easy to drive. You don't have to be a captain to drive these, and they'll explain how to do it. But you can rent this by the hour for about $30 an hour. They also rent paddle boards, kayaks, and it's just a first come, first serve, so you kind of get what's available. But I would definitely give this a 10, just for the beautiful scenic views and just for the opportunity to be out on the lake. We're going to be doing the boat tours at all the other lakes, but we thought we would do our own this time.
Okay, for the next thing to do, I've got 2 things for you here in this segment. So the next thing to do is to visit North Fork. This is a section of the park that you actually need a reservation, at least this year in 2022. You need a reservation to come visit it. This is about an hour or so north of Apgar Village, okay, which is where you enter the west gate pretty much. So North Fork is a little bit more backcountry kind of, but what you do is you drive up to a little town called Polebridge. Town is probably too generous. It's just a little tiny mercantile store, a saloon and restaurant, and then they have some little places you can stay, some little cabins that you can stay in. And the famous thing to do there is to visit the mercantile store to get a bear claw. A Huckleberry bear claw is what everybody likes to do there. Now, we've done another video on food, so you can watch that if you want to, food in Glacier. But anyway, you can drive up to visit Polebridge, and then you can come to, there's 2 lakes here. This is Bowman Lake behind me here. This is really gorgeous. I mean, it's just crazy how God designed all these to be picture perfect at Glacier National Park. That's really cool. This is about a 30-minute drive on a pretty rough dirt road, so I would recommend a higher clearance vehicle or something like that. And then there's another lake about an hour north called Kintla Lake. We're not going to go over that one today. We're just doing Bowman Lake here. So that is North Fork, and that's another thing you can do. We wouldn't put it as your highest priority, but it is kind of a way to get away from the crowds a little bit. There's hardly anybody here at this lake where we are.
And if you want to play in the water, this is a great place to paddleboard, kayak. It's gotten so popular, it's hard to find a spot like this to do this anymore. So
yep, the only trick is you'd have to bring your own paddleboard, maybe a blow-up paddleboard type of a thing, or rent one and have a vehicle to put it on. Okay, now the second thing is to look at the colored rocks. Okay, so I bring this up because this has been a trend I've noticed on Instagram, and I always warn our viewers here against planning your trip using Instagram. So again, this is kind of a popular thing. You can see that in the lake here there are colored rocks, and so one of the very common questions that rangers get around here is where to find the colored rocks. Well, you can find them in any lake. Okay, we're in Bowman Lake here. We were at Lake McDonald earlier, and the colored rocks were there. The rocks are cool. They are colored, but they're not Instagram filtered colored. So they're not as amazing as what you might see in some pictures online. So don't get your hopes up on, seeing these just amazing colorful rocks. But they are kind of fun. They are different colors. So it's something you can check out when you visit one of the lakes here in Glacier National Park. Okay, the next thing to do is to get a treat. So we already covered that Pole Bridge Mercantile Bakery store. Now when you're in Montana or Glacier National Park, you have to try Huckleberry stuff. So I have determined that the state economy for Montana revolves around huckleberries. I mean, there's, you know, logging, whatever, that's gotta be pale in comparison to huckleberries. Because everywhere you go, it's just huckleberry everything. There's huckleberry pie, we had huckleberry trout. What else did we have? Huckleberry something earlier.
They had huckleberry charcuterie.
Charcuterie, of course. Of course, the huckleberry charcuterie. So this is Wild Huckleberry dark chocolate sea salt candy bar. And then this is Red Jammer Huckleberry soda. Okay, so you got to try huckleberry stuff. It actually is good. Just about everything I've tried that's huckleberry has been very good. So give that a shot on your glacier. Skip the Pole Bridge Bakery and go for some huckleberry goods. Okay, the next thing to do is to take a red bus tour. Look at this super cool red bus behind me. We are at Lake McDonald Lodge here, and from here and from some other places in the park, they will give you tours across the Going to the Sun Road. The red bus tours have been in operation since the 1920s or 30s, I think. So in the very early days of the park, people would have to ride a horse through the park to get over the mountain ranges and to get to some of the backcountry areas. Then when the automobile came along, of course, they started paving roads and they built that amazing Going to the Sun Road. Well, they still needed a way to get people around the park, and so they came up with these bus tours. They're called red bus tours. And as they were coming down some of the very steep roads from the canyons, the drivers would have to jam it into low gear, and so they called them gear jammers. That was kind of their nickname, as gear jammers. And then these buses came to be known as jammer buses. So in the late 1990s, around the year 2000, they renovated it from the old standard transmissions where you'd have to jam it into gear, and Ford donated and renovated these things and put a modern engine in there and everything like that. But the body of this is an original from the 1930s. These are so cool, and Cheryl and I really wanted to go on one of these tours, but it just didn't quite work out with our schedule. They do offer 4 types of tours, ranging from kind of half day to full day type tours that go up the Going to the Sun Road and over to the other side of the park, the east side. So definitely consider doing one of these tours if you come. It would be a beautiful way to do the Going to the Sun Road, and a less terrifying way to do it because you're not the one driving along the ledge. But unfortunately, we're not doing it today.
Next is driving the very, very famous Going to the Sun Road. Now, the Going to the Sun Road serves 2 purposes. One is it's just a connection between West Glacier and East Glacier, but it also happens to be one of the most scenic roads in the United States. The Going to the Sun Road takes 2 hours if you start at West Glacier and head to East Glacier, or vice versa. So you want to plan on a good 2 hours. There's no gas stations to fill up, so make sure that you are filled up before you go. I've seen a bathroom stop along the way, so that's a good thing, but no water fill-ups, no restaurants along this road. But you are going to see some incredible things. You're going to be hugging the canyon wall on one side, which is actually where you feel the safest, because on the other side is a sheer drop-off. And on most of it, you know, it's a constant debate about national parks, about how much of the responsibility lies on the national parks to make things safe. But I would say on the Going to the Sun Road, they chose to make the park aesthetically pleasing instead of making it uber safe. The little barrier on the side of the road to keep you from rolling off the side of the canyon is only about 2 or 3 feet tall. So you can see right into it. It's so beautiful, but so nerve-wracking if you're the passenger driving up the mountain. Now, the Going to the Sun Road can be accessed a few ways. You can drive your own personal vehicle. This year, though, you do have to have a reservation to drive your personal vehicle over the road. But just make sure to check the park website because it might be different in another year. This is the summer of 2022, and it may be different the next when you are traveling. So make sure to check the park website to make sure you can go on this road. You can also access it just for free on the Glacier Shuttle. There's a Glacier Shuttle that runs every day for every 10 to 15 minutes. And lastly, there are the very famous red bus tours. You need to reserve those quite a bit in advance, but they are awesome. And going to the Sun Road is such a cool thing to do in Glacier, and maybe the most exciting thing to do here, that we made a whole other video about 10 things you need to know to go on the Going to the Sun Road.
Okay, the next thing to do is to stop at Logan Pass. So this is the peak of the Going to the Sun Road. It is at the very top, and when you get up here, there's a parking lot. It's a fairly large parking lot, but it does fill up quickly. I was blown away. We drove the Going to the Sun Road this morning to get up here to Logan Pass, and we started our drive at 6:30, and by the time we got up here, the parking lot was at least halfway full. I mean, wow, there was a line of cars driving this morning. Anyway, once you get up here, you can get out, and they have a visitor center here, which is not open right now because we're here so early. And then the thing to do is this hike that goes up here to Hidden Lake. It's called the Hidden Lake hike. Now, crazy thing is we got here today and the hike is closed. They just have a string across it saying you can't go on this hike. We have no idea why, so this is a huge letdown for us. The last time we came here, we brought our kids, and it was so amazing. We weren't able to hike all the way to Hidden Lake due to the snow. So you can see there's plenty of snow up there, so you know, you're kind of at the mercy when the snow melts. But man, we had a great time. We saw mountain goats, we saw a marmot, and there's just all these wildflowers up here. It's gorgeous, kind of a meadow area almost. You've got mountain peaks surrounding you on all sides. I mean, this is actually, even though we can't go on the hike right now, this is just amazing. We're just kind of enjoying this time up here at the top of the mountain. So anyway, Logan Pass, maybe hopefully this hike will open up later today or something like that. We can get back here, but Logan Pass is amazing. Okay, the next thing to do is to visit St. Mary Falls. This is a pretty popular waterfall on the north end of St. Mary Lake. But there's actually quite a few things to do around here. So the fall behind me is Virginia Falls. And on this hike, we also went to Bering Falls, and we did Sunrift Gorge as well. They're all just stunningly beautiful. St. Mary Falls, there's the reason why it's really popular. We actually saw some people jumping into the water there, and the water is just crystal clear, blue, turquoise, just incredibly pure and gorgeous. And then from St. Mary Falls, we continued up here to Virginia Falls. A little bit of an ascent, but not too bad. And for me, it was the best part of the hike. It was just gorgeous along the way. You get to a more wooded, forested area, the sun's shining through there with ferns, and you've got just cascade of falls all along the way until you get to Virginia Falls here. So you can't go wrong doing this hike to St. Mary Falls. There's a lot more to do around the area as well.
Okay, next up is to take a boat ride through Glacier Park Boat Company. This is the only company that does boats in the park. They've been in business since 1938, and they are a family-run business. They have boat rides at 4 locations. They do Lake McDonald, Mini Glacier, St. Mary, and Two Medicine. You can do a ride at any of those places. We just got done with ours at St. Mary's, but we're going to be going on a couple more, and we're going to be actually doing a review on all of them, so you can check out that other video. But from what I can tell you so far, this is a pretty fun thing to do. Something nice about it is you can make advanced reservations if you want to, but you can generally get them the day of, which is really nice because sometimes you don't know how your day's going to go and what time you're going to catch a boat. The other nice thing about doing these boat tours is that a lot of times you can take these boat rides to cut some distance off of some of the hikes. Glacier is a hiker's park, And even if you love to hike, you can get tired if you hike all day long. And so sometimes it's kind of nice to cheat a couple miles off of your hike. On the boat ride, ours was about an hour and a half long. And on our boat ride, we learned some interesting things about St. Mary's. One thing that I thought was especially interesting is why they don't rent personal boats here, like kayaks. It's because this place gets some wicked, crazy winds. The winds blow so hard, the trees grow sideways, and storms can come really fast, so they only trust licensed captains to drive around here. But you also learn about some of the animals, some of the geology, and then just some interesting stories about the area. So the tour guide is half the fun, and you can tell that these guys have a great camaraderie. They like each other, they're excited to be here, they're excited to be captains, and it just brings the energy. An example of getting to kind of skip the hike is we got to go over to Bering Falls, and it was just a quick little 5-minute walk to go see a waterfall, which was nice, saved a bit of time if we would have hiked it. So overall, I would say taking a boat ride is pretty fun.
The next thing to do is to visit the Two Medicine area in Glacier National Park. This is kind of a separate area, a separate little valley with its own lake and hikes and all that stuff to do. So for the next couple segments, we'll just show you things to do in Two Medicine. So the first thing to do in Two Medicine behind me here is Running Eagle Falls. This is a really short hike. It's only about 0.6 miles round trip, I think. There's a little nature trail. It's ADA accessible, flat. We like that. We love when we can get to a nice scenic shot like this waterfall with very little effort. So this is a great one. Don't miss out on this if you come to Two Medicine. The waterfall here is called Running Eagle Falls, but it has kind of another name, which is Trick Falls, because there's actually two waterfalls there, one in front of another one. And so that's kind of an interesting little quirk. And you can see it's very unusual because it's kind of coming down through the rock. It's not coming over that top ledge of the rock. So that's pretty cool. And then the river just running through here, leading right to the mountains here behind us. Really beautiful area and a great introduction to Two Medicine. Okay, the next thing to do is to hike in Two Medicine. The hiking in Glacier National Park is amazing. So some people hike all the way up to Upper Two Medicine Lake, but we went along the edge of the lake and we got to a little overlook or a little viewpoint of the lake. And then we came up a little farther to this waterfall right here. This is called Aster Falls. And then you can actually go up a very steep switchback to get to another viewpoint called Aster Park. Our opinion here is Aster Park is not worth it. It's really strenuous to get there, and although the viewpoint is nice, it's not something that you don't really see in Glacier anyway, so I'd say don't worry about that. This waterfall, however, better than Apostokey Falls. We would highly suggest this. And then there's some really pretty meadows along the hike as well, so spend a little time getting out away from the dock and back into the woods.
Okay. The next thing to do is to pick some huckleberries. We've seen huckleberry merch everywhere at the lodges, the stores, the gas stations, the restaurants, and now we have found legitimate wild huckleberries in the woods. So here you go. We've got a dark purple color and there's like a little flower on them. That's how you know that they're huckleberries. There's some bright red ones that are kind of sour berries. You don't want to eat those. You got to get the dark purple ones.
Yeah. Okay, the next thing to do is to visit Twin Falls. There's a reason why it's called Twin Falls. We've got one on one side, one on the other. This is about a mile from the end of Two Medicine Lake. So in order just to start this hike, you have to take a boat ride to the end of the lake. Or you can hike 3.5 miles, the length of the lake, to do it. But anyway, we did the boat ride, and they have some options on the boat rides where you can do a guided hike if you want. So the boat ride itself has a tour guide, and they'll tell you some stories as you go across the lake and all that. But some of the tours also have the guided tour option or the guided hike option at the end of the boat ride. So we actually started out with the guided hike, and she'll tell you about some of the trees and the mountains and things like that. Although we ended up breaking off a little bit because it was kind of going slow for us and we're in a hurry today. So we came up here to the Twin Falls. It's really pretty. Now we're going to head back and catch the boat back. Okay, up next is to do the Grinnell Glacier hike. This is in many glaciers. So now our next few segments are going to be in the Many Glacier Valley. We've moved on from Two Medicine, and now we're going to spend some time in probably the most famous valley in Glacier National Park, Many Glacier. We've saved the best for last. So currently we are at Upper Grinnell Lake, and you can see a waterfall, and then up above that you can see Grinnell Glacier. This is one of the most famous hikes in America, definitely the most famous hike in Glacier National Park, I'm sure. And so let me just give you a little overview of it, my rating, and then some tips. So first of all, this hike is about 12 miles long, and you will pass 3 lakes en route to this lake. So you're going to see 4 lakes all together. You're going to pass quite a few waterfalls. You even walk through a waterfall along the hike, which is super cool. You're up really high in this glacial bowl that has been carved out here. And you're going to pass through some gorgeous wildflower scenery. I mean, that's one of the things that makes the hike so special and such a wonderful experience, is that you're just going through these amazing wildflowers, Indian paintbrush, bear grass, there's purples, there's yellows, there's blues, reds, whites. I mean, it's really quite a stunner. I mean, one of the most stunning experiences we've ever had. It's actually really hard to put into words how beautiful and breathtaking this hike is. One of the things we've really noticed about Glacier is that it's a colorful place. And this hike shows off some of the very best colors of Glacier National Park. The lakes have this really turquoise, bright turquoise color to them, and that's because the glaciers kind of rub against the rocks and they leave this residue that ends up dyeing the lakes turquoise. Again, I mentioned all the colorful wildflowers, and then surprisingly, some of the rocks in the mountains are kind of like red rocks. So this area was all under the sea at one point, so we've seen some rocks here that are similar to the rocks we saw in Capitol Reef called Ripple Rock. And so it's just red, green, the colorful wildflowers, the blue, the turquoise, the white snow and glaciers. It really shows off the best. Okay, so now for my rating. If you haven't been able to tell by now, we've just been gushing over this hike the whole time. This is probably the best hike we've ever been on, or at least top 2 or 3. We were comparing this to maybe Angel's Landing at Zion National Park, and some other really stunner hikes that we've been on. If you are physically able, you need to really try to do this hike at some point in your life, because it is an incredible experience. So let me give you some tips now. First of all, the hike I mentioned is 12 miles, and that's round trip. So if you start at the trailhead, you come all the way up here, that's about 6 miles to go back down, it's another 6. You can cut some time off with a boat ride. Now, we have done a whole other video about how to do this hike with the boat ride, so I'm going to refer you to that video and let you watch that for more details. Just a couple of more tips. We are here in August, and the hike just barely opened up because it's snow on the trail and all that. They had to actually go kind of clear out some of the snow, and it just opened up last week. So if you're coming here and you want to do this hike, I would plan your trip for mid to late August or something like that, so you can make sure that the trail is open. Also, obviously, you're going to want to bring plenty of water and snacks because it is a long hike. Even if you do the boat ride, it's quite a long hike. It's still 7 miles round trip or so. You may want to bring things like trekking poles because you're going uphill for most of the way. It's pretty intense in that regard. Plenty of people, of course, bringing their bear spray because we're in Glacier National Park, backpack with water, all that stuff. Just be prepared for a long hike. And then just when you get here, enjoy the glacier, the lake, the colors. And my last tip for you is just take your time and enjoy this hike. If this is the only thing you do on your day in Many Glacier, it'll be the best day of your life.
Next up is Grinnell Lake behind me. If you take the boat cruise across the lake, the same boat cruise you would take for the Grinnell Glacier, you can choose to go up to Grinnell Glacier, which is like over 7 miles.
Up there at the top.
Yes, up there. Or you can choose to do this, or you can do both, which is what Matt and I did today. This one is significantly easier though. This is 0.9 miles each way from the boat dock. It's a really flat dirt trail. It's a lot more shaded, lots of vegetation around you, and then you end up at this beautiful glacial lake. And so when you start your boat tour, you start on Swift Current, you get off, you walk for a little bit, get on the Josephine boat to get over here. That's the Josephine Lake. And now we're at Grinnell. And I would say absolutely worth it. I think that this would be a perfect hike for families, or if hiking's not really your thing, you need it a little more level, this is just perfect. But Matt and I got here in about 25 minutes from the boat dock. We were going at a pretty good pace, but yeah, I would definitely recommend this. This is gorgeous. And it's just so nice to dip your feet in the cold water after hiking so much.
Okay, the next thing to do is Red Rock Falls. So named because they are falls. No, because they are red rock here. It's actually really cool. The rock is red, and it's not red rock like southern Utah and Arizona red rock, but just the rocks are red. And the falls are really, really pretty here. So this is also in the Many Glacier Valley here. And I'll be honest with you, we have hiked 9 miles today to Grinnell Glacier and Grinnell Lake. And Cheryl said we needed to go do this hike. And I had a little bit of waterfall fatigue, and of course I was just tired anyway from hiking so much. Didn't really want to do it. I thought this would just kind of be another glacier waterfall. Now I don't want to make that sound bad, but there is a little bit of a waterfall fatigue sort of a thing here in Glacier. One of the other hikers that I saw on a trail, she said, "I know this sounds bad, but that's just another waterfall," because she'd seen so many waterfalls. They're all beautiful, but obviously some are more beautiful than others. I'm really glad we came and did this one because this is gorgeous. Cheryl said it looks like it was professionally landscaped. It's just different levels and cascading down. It really is a very pretty waterfall. The hike here is pretty flat. It's 4 miles round trip. You go by a couple of lakes where wildlife like moose and deer like to hang out. So a very nice little evening stroll for us today.
The next thing to do is to attend a ranger program. There are ranger programs every day throughout the day, and all you need to do is either look at the schedule board at the visitor center or at your hotel, or even some of the newspapers they print off will have those events in them. And really, don't miss out on the chance to listen to a ranger. They have such fascinating stories. We just heard Ranger Benson talk about research within the park, and we learned about mountain sheep and mountain goats and grizzlies and the ptarmigan. So don't miss out on that chance to see those things in the park.
Okay, the next thing to do here in Many Glacier is to watch the sunrise. Oh my goodness, again, just one of the most beautiful things. This is really comparable to the Grand Tetons here. You can sit out on the deck of the Many Glacier Hotel or just walk along the edge of the lake and see this beautiful sunrise. The sun comes up and hits the mountain here. If you head over here to the bridge, you can actually see the sun rising, and it's hitting the little waterfall that's right by here. So that's another beautiful sight. So, you know, Cheryl and I yesterday hiked 13 miles, over 13 miles around Many Glacier in one day. Wouldn't recommend that. I'd say break it up into 2 days if you're going to be doing a lot of hiking. But even if you're not a hiker, you can just enjoy Many Glacier just by spending time here. You can walk around the lake here, walk along the shore, stay at the Many Glacier Hotel or eat dinner there, get out on the deck. Just spend some time. You can't go wrong in Many Glacier. Okay, for my final thing, I've got 2 things for you here. So, next thing to do is to visit Waterton Lakes National Park in Canada. This is kind of the Canadian side of Glacier National Park. Now, we've done a whole other video on Waterton Lakes, so make sure to check that out. And my final thing for you, the final thing to do, is to have a game plan when you visit Glacier National Park. Guess what? We have used our own travel guide for this video, our own itinerary to see the best of Glacier National Park. Now, we worked with somebody who is an expert on Glacier National Park, who lived in the park for 8 summers in a row and knows the park inside and out. She helped us to create this guide for you. And now we came up to test it out to see how well it works. And by our video, you can see we have seen and done a lot of amazing things in Glacier National Park. It would not have been possible if we did not have a great game plan and itinerary. You can get this on our website at we'reintherockies.com. Please go check it out. If you want to have a great trip to Glacier National Park and have an efficient game plan, One that's also flexible based on your situation, your age, your family. If you've got a big family, you're a little older and retired, and you don't like to hike as much, or if you're somebody who does like to hike. Maybe you have a higher budget, you can eat at some of these higher end places. Maybe lower budget, some of the lower end places. We've got you covered. You can eat a game plan for Glacier National Park and have a very similar, amazing vacation what we just had.